have power. You must have the power to hire and fire. You must have power to implement and to hinder and to prevent people from progressing. And that people say that black people cannot be racist because we don't have the power to determine the quality of people's lives. I mean, those are various arguments. But racism manifested through prejudice because it usually is rooted in prejudice. And prejudice is rooted in ignorance. I guess this is why we talk of knowledge. Who went back to Grenada and became a member of the New Deal movement and the government, and that was eventually removed for threatening America. And it was so ridiculous that it would have been like an ass on an elephant's backside trying to threaten the elephant. But nevertheless, the government was deposed and he wound up in prison. And I think he's still there. This was 1983. But before then, he was in England as a teacher. And he wrote a very interesting book, to come back on the subject of racism. He wrote a very interesting book called How the West Indian Child, or possibly the Caribbean, West Indian, how the West Indian child was made educationally subnormal in the British schools, something like that. Small book, very powerful. And he showed you how these tests were done. Tests that had no relationship to the child's experience, to the children's experience. They were tests like, how does this train door open? Does it open this way or does it open this way? Sliding inside. Coming from the Caribbean, there were those children didn't know anything about trains because most of the Caribbeans don't have trains, if any at all. And there were things like about snowflakes and how many shapes they have. Things about snow, which they had never seen in the Caribbean. And because they were failing these tests, they were put in educationally subnormal schools. And that stigmatized them and crippled their minds the rest of their lives. Now, that is racism perpetrated from ignorance or bias or mischievousness, whatever. Ignorance, I would prefer to say. I don't want to say that people are necessarily mischievous, but there's a clear example of what racism is, the working of racism. Again, when we talk about the perception of black being bad and black being negative, and you see people on the streets being fearful of black people, and the police, being the guardian of the society, is forced to act. And he too is a member of that society, and he too has the power. He has power, so he's going to exercise that power how he feels fit. And very often it is in a hostile way, or a way that deprives people of their social liberty. Mass media is particularly responsible for the perpetration of racism in the most vile, vulgar, and heinous kind of ways. Very often sensationally to self-interest because they know that the nation is interested in racism and they exploit that. And I will give you a case of how this happened. Some years ago, there was a story that saturated the press, the pages of the newspaper, and images on the television screen for days and days, in and out. The story was about two black boys who burnt a white kid. Burnt the white kid in a pot. Set fire to him. Burnt it. At least that's how it was reported. And it was all over the newspaper, day in, day out, for over a week. They actually give you photo-fitted images of of these two boys who were wearing what were called a special cut, etchings. You know, they used to do etchings. It was a popular hairstyle at that time, where they etch various designs in the head. The hair was cut very, very close, but they used razor blade to actually to give you the etchings, to remove all the hair so you can get designs on it. And these two photo pictures were broadcast around the whole nation and abroad, because news are international in those days, about these two black guys around 20, late 20s, who did this horrible thing. The police, now remember, the police investigating the police inspector, detective, whoever he was, he said never in his 20-something years did he come across such an evil and wicked crime, and that these animals has to be apprehended at all costs. I'll never forget it. I read the story, and in the presence of my brother, I stamped my foot on the ground and I said, nah, don't believe it. When you know a community, when you work with community, and you get to know people, you know, and I know them, I knew it was wrong. It wasn't true, I said. My brother was there. You know, he always thought that I was a bit other than himself. And so he just, ex-soldier, British soldier, you know, he just shrugged his shoulder as to say, well, I don't want to doubt you, but this is what the paper is saying. Now, about 2 weeks later, or sometime towards the end of the story, it's very important, don't get bored. It's very, towards the end of the story, the press. Anyhow, this one day my brother came, and he's a guy that reads paper from back to front, page to page, even the adverts he would read. He had a reading Jones, in this same America. He came to me and he nudged me like that. Not a word he didn't say. He just pointed to a little column that big and said, look. And when I read it, you know what the paper said? It said, a dear old lady who was sick to her teeth with the news report about these kids proclaimed to be heroes, the two white kids, who was all over the pages of the paper and the television. Parents was on TV as well, sitting down, you know, beaming with smiles and pride at being called the mother of heroes. These kids that suffered some on their hands and stuff. But they blew it up like the whole kids had 3-degree burns. This old lady who had seen what happened, she was so sick about it. But you know what she did? She contacted the press and told them that she saw the two boys in the park, a park like this, playing with a lighter, and the lighter exploded and burnt their hands. There were no such thing, but they were photo-fit images that could have been one of 100,000 black kids up and down the country. And, you know, demonized, a massive story, young black kid. But you know what was the saddest thing about the whole story? None of the police officers, the parents, the press, none of them came back to debate how two little kids could make fools of the world's greatest police force. We must know the importance of self-love and appreciation. We have to love ourselves the way nature has created us. Love ourselves in our skin, irregardless of what shade it is. We have to love ourselves that way. We have to be ourselves. We can't be anyone else. We can't groom to become someone else because we can never be our true self. And we can never get the best of ourselves if we try to imitate someone else. We can only be at our best when we are ourselves. So we have to love ourselves as we are, the way nature has created us. The only self-loathing they should be is when we are in error, and we need to loathe ourselves for that and correct ourselves. But as far as our physical attributes are concerned, the way nature has created us, we have to love ourselves that way. We cannot carry it as a burden or a hindrance, because that is sure to be ultimate failure. So we must continue to love ourselves, our African self, with our African skin and our African hair. And let people appreciate us that way. If we carry our hair, if we carry our skin, if we carry our African attributes as a burden and as a loathing, other people would see and respond to us in like manner. But if we carry ourselves proud and upright and dignified, then people will appreciate us for that and respect us that way. Otherwise, we cannot gain respect by trying to be any other than what we are.